Hello, my name is Danae Doris, and I am the Project Manager for the American Clearinghouse on Educational Facilities. I would like to thank you for listening to our podcast today entitled Designing Safer and More Effective K-12 Schools. ACEF is the Educational Facilities Clearinghouse funded by the United States Department of Education, established to provide technical assistance, training, and resources to public early childhood schools, K-12 schools, and institutions of higher education. ACEF provides resources on facility planning, design, financing, construction, improvement, operation, and maintenance. We invite you to follow ACEF online at acefacilities.org and also encourage you to join the network of professionals already following the educational facilities discussions on Facebook, Twitter, and Blogger. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's podcast, Mr. Michael Dorn. Mr. Dorn serves as the Executive Director for a School Safety Center. In addition, Mr. Dorn has published numerous books on school safety and presented internationally. During his 30-year career as a school safety practitioner, Mr. Dorn has served as a police lieutenant for Mercer University, police chief for Georgia Public Schools, was appointed as the school safety specialist for the Georgia Emergency Management Agency, and selected as the state anti-terrorism lead program manager for Georgia's Office of Homeland Security. Again, it is my honor to present to you Mr. Michael Dorn. Thank you, Mr. Dorn, for sharing your expertise with our audience today.
Thank you, Dr. Doris, for the introduction. Stephen tried hard to avoid going to the bathroom when he was at school. The tall, red-headed boy had beaten him up so many times that he had learned to ask his teachers for hall passes so he could avoid going to that dangerous place in his school. With 2 doors, the bathroom was a place where the bully could beat him and other children up without much fear of a teacher hearing the commotion. Unfortunately, his teachers began to tell him that he needed to learn to go to the restroom when he was supposed to, and he could no longer get a pass. He tried so hard not to go to the bathroom, but sometimes he could not hold it any longer. On one such occasion, he thought he could get in and out quickly, and the coast finally seemed clear, but he was mistaken. The boy trapped him in the bathroom once again. This time, he decided to hurt Stephen in a different way. He forced Stephen to pretend to perform an act of oral sex on him in front of other children. Stephen was humiliated. Stephen had to relive his experience of being brutally raped by 2 teenage boys years earlier. He was degraded. Stephen lost any sense of dignity and any desire to live that day in the bathroom of his elementary school. Stephen had thought of death constantly after that. Were it not for his religion, he might have taken his own life. No child should ever even consider death as an option to school. Sadly, enough students have made this choice that support group for parents whose children have committed suicide due to bullying at school was formed a number of years ago. As we have seen, the rare but very real problem of students taking their own lives because of school bullying is still with us today. The architects and school officials who designed Stephen's school did not have the benefits of the substantial body of research in safe school design that we have available to us today. We now know that by designing a student restroom with no doors and a zigzag entryway, we can reduce the likelihood of bullying, sexual assault, robbery, and other acts of violence in school restrooms. Like other aspects of school safety, school design is but one part of a comprehensive approach of integrated strategies that can be used to make schools safer, more effective, and fun places for our children to learn and grow. We have 5 goals for this session today. Our first goal is to help you understand the importance of effective involvement of area public safety officials in the design process to help identify and correct potential design problems relating to safety, security, and emergency preparedness. Our second goal is to introduce you to the powerful yet inexpensive and evidence-based concepts of crime prevention through environmental design, commonly known as CPTED. Our third goal is to provide you with a variety of beneficial design concepts that can help school officials more effectively mitigate common situations involving aggressive individuals such as an angry parent in the front office. Our fourth goal is to discuss the effective concepts to improve emergency communications in and around K-12 school facilities. Our fifth and final goal is to introduce a number of other helpful design concepts that can often be utilized to address a variety of common and sometimes uncommon safety, security, and emergency preparedness concerns for school officials. As we begin, it is important to mention that American K-12 schools are typically designed and constructed with far more safety features than schools in many parts of the world. While this increases construction costs and the complexity of building a new school, the benefits are incalculable. For example, when we consider that approximately 7,000 students died in their schools during an earthquake in the People's Republic of China in 2008, and that a staggering 17,000 students died in their schools during an earthquake in Pakistan in 2005, the value of the high standards for life safety issues in American K-12 school construction become readily apparent. Those who occupy our buildings typically do not have an appreciation for just how much goes into designing and building safer facilities in the United States. Clearly, then, America's building codes, architects, engineers, and school officials have prevented many deaths through school design, even when the average American fails to recognize these worthy accomplishments. To build on the demonstrable success in reducing mortality rates in American schools, we will explore just a few examples of concepts that can be utilized to design safer, more productive, and more pleasant learning and work environments. We will focus on concepts that move beyond code requirements in most parts of the country, and on areas that can dramatically improve the safety of school facilities. First, effective involvement of law enforcement, emergency management, fire service, and security officials in the design process will usually pay big dividends in the enhancement of life safety in the final design. When architects are willing to help public safety practitioners understand specifics of architectural drawings and listen to their feedback, they will typically find that meetings with these knowledgeable personnel will not only be productive, but can help prevent major problems with school design. Public safety practitioners can help identify and correct problems that are often missed in the design phase. For example, I was asked by a colleague who is an architect and a security expert to look over his shoulder on a project to build a middle school in Alabama. He was evaluating the design from a security standpoint and wanted me and one of my colleagues to evaluate the design from an emergency management perspective. We quickly noticed that a number of special needs classrooms were sited on the third floor of a wing with nearly identical floor plans for each of the 3 floors. When we asked him to find out if there would be many students with mobility challenges occupying these classrooms, he checked with his client architect and learned that it was anticipated that quite a number of students in wheelchairs would in fact be occupying these rooms. The client was most eager to implement our suggestions to move these classrooms to the ground floor to make emergency egress safer and faster, and was impressed that we found this rather obvious problem so quickly. In reality, it is doubtful that a local fire department representative would have missed what we noticed either. Involvement of public safety practitioners can also improve the survivability of occupants in natural disasters. For example, if a representative of the local emergency management agency is able to suggest ways to improve tornado sheltering areas, the likelihood of a mass casualty loss can be reduced. A particular area of focus should be on emergency warning and communication systems that are relevant to area hazards. Most school officials and architects have legitimate concerns relating to exposure to civil liability in school construction projects. This is a rational fear in our highly litigious society. Performing work as a school safety malpractice expert witness consultant has reaffirmed my belief that there is no shortage of people who will actively seek a reason to sue others in our country. An additional benefit from involving area public safety practitioners in the design process is that it can help reduce liability exposure of a non-public school, school system, or architectural firm. Incorporating this approach in the design process is one more tangible piece of evidence that the school organization and the firm have acted in a reasonable and responsible manner in attempting to address life safety issues. In most areas of the country, this type of involvement exceeds any legal requirement, demonstrating that the parties involved in the design process have gone above and beyond what is required of them. In addition, as the previous examples demonstrate, this approach can reduce the chances of serious injury and death, which are often the most effective ways to prevent serious litigation in the first place. An important consideration for involvement of public safety officials in the design process is to work to keep the feedback from security and law enforcement officials from becoming out of balance in the process. The intensive media focus on multiple victim school shootings in this country has created an inaccurate and dangerous perspective in our nation that school shootings are on the rise. In reality, evaluations by trained researchers have consistently demonstrated that the K-12 school homicide rate in the United States has actually decreased considerably over the past 30 years. One negative result of this distortion of reality is that many public safety officials and educators have an out-of-balance emphasis on what are commonly referred to as active shooter situations. These rare but catastrophic mass casualty events involve one or more individuals who carry out multiple victim school shootings. While any K-12 public, private, charter, independent, or parochial school building design should certainly consider this very real and viable threat to any school, it should not dominate our thinking when schools are designed. An overemphasis on active shooter situations can result in missed opportunities to address far more common and often equally deadly risks for our schools, such as tornadoes, hazardous materials incidents in or near schools, as well as much more common situations such as aggressive individuals in the main office area and medical emergencies. Emphasizing the importance of an all-hazards approach and actively soliciting feedback from fire service and emergency management professionals, as well as from law enforcement and security professionals, is especially important so that concerns such as hazardous materials incidents, natural disasters, fire, medical emergencies, and other life and death situations are also considered. This is prudent and normally productive. Protecting staff and students from deadly chemicals released during a tanker truck or rail disaster can be just as important as protecting them from a gunman. The next area we will explore involves crime prevention through environmental design, again commonly referred to as CPTED. This is a powerful and proven approach to help reduce the risk associated with crime, as well as a reduction in the perceived level of fear of crime by students, staff, and parents. CPTED is an evidence-based approach which has been documented by extensive research and assessment over decades. CPTED offers a number of benefits over more overt and sometimes aggressive approaches to school security. First, CPTED is a relatively passive approach in terms of not only how people perceive it, but in terms of day-to-day utilization, which generally places fewer daily operational burdens on faculty and staff in contrast to some other approaches. Next, CPTED improves school security while also creating a warm and friendly environment using three primary approaches. The first approach is referred to as natural access control. A common example of natural access control would be a school entryway design that makes people enter through the main office as they come into the school. Second, territoriality. Territoriality in this sense means ways to connect people to the place of school in positive ways to create a sense of ownership. A common example of this approach would be beautiful murals that create a distinct connection between staff, students, parents, and the school. The final approach for CPTED involves something known as natural surveillance. While security cameras can be very effective in improving school security, their preventive value is typically highly overrated, as evidenced by a compelling number of school shootings, abductions of students, and other events where perpetrators were clearly aware that they were being filmed prior to the commission of a crime. In contrast, natural surveillance involves building design features that enhance the ability of people to see and hear one another. This approach often creates unease among people with criminal intent because they know it increases their chances of detection. At the same time, legitimate users of space often feel more comfortable even when they cannot put their finger on why it is they feel safer. I have simulated thefts of thousands of laptop computers, LCD projectors, vehicles, and even students from schools across the nation at the request of our clients over the years. This is done in a non-threatening manner to test their actual level of security. I've never once been stopped by anyone watching a security camera. While security cameras have some deterrent value, are excellent investigative tools, and when used properly can significantly improve access control, I place at least as much, if not more, emphasis on improved natural surveillance as a means to prevent and to stop criminal and other inappropriate behaviors in schools. While I've never been stopped because someone detected me via a security camera, I have been detected by students and staff who were able to see me and to determine that my actions appeared suspicious. Combining carefully implemented security camera equipment with excellent natural surveillance offers a powerful deterrent approach. Another important aspect of safe school design involves features to help mitigate against statistically common forms of school violence and aggression. Though similar to the concept of prevention, mitigation is a distinct concept that involves our efforts to minimize the impact of events that we either cannot prevent, such as a tornado, or an incident that occurs in spite of our efforts to prevent it. Here are a few examples. School entryways. School entry designs that create an ability to slow or stop an aggressor can prove to be invaluable. Following a keynote presentation recently, a woman approached me and related an incident where a woman signed 2 children into the school one morning after the late bell had sounded. As soon as the children had left the school office to go to class, the woman excitedly reported to the school employee that her ex-husband was in the vehicle in the school parking lot with a loaded gun. He had threatened to kill her if she did not bring the children to the school following an altercation between the couple. The school implemented a lockdown and called 911. The man was arrested by responding police while he was attempting to force his way into the main entryway with the gun. The man had figured out that the school had implemented a lockdown and was apparently attempting to locate and kill his ex-wife. Because the school maintained a secure entryway using a security camera and buzzer system, they were able to deny the man access without having to lock the front doors in person. The man was beating on the windows when the officers arrived. As this case illustrates, windows at such entryways should be treated with a protective laminate to slow or stop an aggressor who may try to enter the school by smashing a window to defeat a locked door. Office designs are another common opportunity for safer schools. A far more common problem for both public and private elementary, middle, and high schools involves aggressive persons in the main office area. When conducting safety, security, and emergency preparedness audits for schools, I utilize custom-filmed school crisis scenarios to depict specific crisis situations and thus evaluate how well school employees and their work areas have been prepared for a wide range of crisis situations by asking the employee to tell me what they would do if the event occurred. The most consistently challenging scenario for school officials to respond to appropriately involves an angry parent who is brandishing a pocket knife, hammer, or some other type of weapon that is not a firearm. Even and often especially in schools that have gone to elaborate lengths to plan, train, drill, and otherwise prepare for active shooter situations, school officials are usually completely stumped by an angry person with a pocket knife. Though this type of scenario is far more common in real life than gunmen in a school, only about 1 in 10 school employees can think of how they would handle this type of situation satisfactorily. Proper office design can dramatically improve the ability of front office staff to safely resolve situations involving angry, intoxicated, and/or dangerously mentally ill aggressors in the main office suite. As mentioned before, these situations occur far more often than aggressors with firearms in schools. As a few examples of helpful design concepts, high and difficult to vault front counter designs can buy precious seconds for staff to retreat to an area of safety. A rapidly securable office area with windows that are difficult to smash through, combined with a telephone and an alternate microphone for the public address system so a lockdown can be announced from a safe place, can make these types of situations much easier for school staff to manage. This was evidenced by the response from a school receptionist in a rural Pennsylvania district to this type of scenario just last year. Without batting an eye, she told me quickly in a step-by-step fashion how she would hit a button that would electronically lock the doors to her work area while automatically activating a panic alarm that rings in 2 different office areas, while she would retreat to a prepared office area and lock the door to create a barrier between her and the aggressor. An administrator at the school told me that these features cost less than $2,000 during a recent renovation. As an optimistic response time for state police to arrive at this school for a life and death emergency would be nearly 30 minutes on average, this could someday prove to be a very well spent $2,000. Classroom locks are another consideration. There's been a considerable concern over the types of locks installed in classrooms, offices, and work areas in schools. New construction projects and some renovation projects are a practical time to address this concern. Selecting locks that allow staff to lock the door from inside the room while allowing for proper emergency egress is recommended. Of course, fire codes must be followed. As mentioned early in the session, restroom safety can be dramatically improved by selecting designs which eliminate doors. Other common concerns, such as smoking in student restrooms, can also be more easily addressed with this approach. Further improvement can be achieved by locating sinks and mirrors in the hallway in a recess located between the boys' and girls' restroom entrances. This design creates far better student supervision while also reducing the cost of each pair of restrooms. Careful selection of electric hand dryers is needed to avoid the creation of excessive noise in hallways for this approach. There are a number of concepts to improve emergency communications that are much easier and less expensive to incorporate during new construction and renovation projects. Money and efforts to improve emergency communications can be one of the wisest investments should any crisis with mass casualty implications ever arise. For example, while money spent on walk-through metal detectors may prevent a single type of event, such as a weapons assault, external public address capability can reduce the chances that mass casualty losses will occur from an approaching tornado, hazardous materials incident in the community, or an armed aggressor. Many options now exist for internal as well as emergency communication systems. Classroom telephones, intercom systems, and other approaches can be selected for today's schools. Regardless of the option selected, it is crucial that building administrators have the ability to contact all classrooms and work areas instantly, and that employees can rapidly contact the main office. There are also technologies that move beyond this type of capability. For example, classroom amplification systems that have been proven to raise test scores exist that also allow a teacher to press a button on a pendant which will not only alert the front office that they have a problem, but will allow the front office to hear what is happening at the teacher's location. Imagine the value of this type of system if a teacher is confronted with an armed aggressor, medical emergency, or an out-of-control student. When the front office can hear the conversation, appropriate assistance can be rapidly dispatched to help the teacher address the problem. Another recent advancement for emergency school communications involves interoperable communication systems which allow school officials to talk directly to responding public safety officials via their school radios. This capability dramatically improves the speed, accuracy, and quality of communications between school and public safety officials when seconds can make the difference between life and death. On a more basic level, during school safety assessments, it is very common to learn that staff in food service areas and physical education areas cannot hear instructions from a public address system adequately. This is typically due to normal noises in the work area. Installing additional speakers in these areas could mean the difference between life and death for a number of students and staff in the event of a tornado, armed aggressor, or hazardous materials incident. As mentioned previously, a good external public address system can be worth its weight in gold in the event of a potential mass casualty event. Any school that lacks the ability to rapidly communicate danger to staff and students in outdoor areas cannot properly protect them from a tornado, a gunman, or external hazardous materials event. There are sometimes local ordinances in residential areas that prohibit these type of systems. One option for this type of situation is for a system to be selected that will only be used for drills and emergencies, and for school officials to seek modification or exception to the ordinance. Another common challenge involves athletic fields and other outdoor areas. It can be very common and could quickly prove to be deadly if a coach and 20 students did not receive word to seek shelter during a tornado warning. In the same context, the ability of these personnel to call for emergency assistance can also be critical. Some schools are installing additional external public address speakers and the same type of emergency phones that are commonly found on higher education campuses in these remote areas. One concern that must be addressed if this is done is to determine who the phone will ring to. If an emergency call is placed during an after-hours event, someone must be available to answer the phone. The most practical solution in many instances is for the phones to ring to the local 911 center. Of course, school officials should check with the 911 center before selecting this option. There are a host of other helpful design concepts to address safety, security, and emergency preparedness concerns. For the sake of time we have available today, we'll only discuss a few of these as examples of how we can sometimes design safer schools. This should prompt other types of thinking that may be relevant. Severe weather sheltering concerns are a major issue, particularly in areas prone to tornadoes. In spite of code requirements, it is not uncommon to find schools that have severe problems with quickly accessible, adequate, and suitable tornado sheltering areas. For example, during an assessment by the School Safety Project of the Georgia Emergency Management Agency, a school's principal expressed concern about suitable sheltering locations for her student population of more than 600 students. During the assessment, it became apparent that the school only had suitable sheltering space for about 40 students unless children were sheltered in the school's boiler room, which would pose other safety hazards and still only provide sheltering for an additional 20 or 30 children. In their efforts to maximize natural light throughout the school, the building planning team had somehow missed the fact that the school was sited in an area with frequent tornado activity and failed to provide adequate sheltering capacity for this very real hazard. As the district had built 6 schools in the same design, the problem was intensified. The situation reinforces the value of involving local public safety officials early in the planning phase. This free assistance would have almost assuredly prevented this serious situation for 6 schools. External hazardous materials incident concerns are significant for many schools located near interstate highways, ports, waterways, rail lines, factories, farms, and other locations where the risk for accidental releases of hazardous materials into the environment can be significant. Design features that make it easier and faster to reduce airflow from outside to the inside and to communicate to people inside as well as outside of the school could prove to be extremely valuable in a hazmat crisis near a school. Of particular interest are HVAC and hood ventilation systems for food service areas. Specific considerations for these mechanical systems are the ease and speed of shutting them down in an emergency and the location of any air intakes that pull air from the outside to the inside of the school for HVAC systems. HVAC systems that can be shut down quickly offer a distinct advantage from the life safety standpoint of hazmat incidents. Systems that can be located on the roof can reduce the amount of contaminant that is pulled into the facility before they are shut down in some instances, and offer reduced access to someone who wishes to intentionally introduce a contaminant into the school. Thus far, these instances in U.S. schools have typically involved pepper spray and have not resulted in any deaths or serious injuries, but have caused some panic. Careful consideration of the placement of offices for school-based security and law enforcement officers can also be productive. Office areas with windows for multiple hallways and office space in or near the main office area are often good choices. Far too often these personnel are located in offices and boiler rooms and other out-of-the-way locations which do not maximize their deterrent presence. Another successful strategy is to create space for a law enforcement substation in the school. A Boys and Girls Clubs Teen Center in Brunswick, Georgia has implemented this strategy with great success. The substation has a separate outside entrance, and the continual going and coming of police officers at all hours of the day and night serves as an excellent deterrent to those who might visit to break into or vandalize the facility. Another opportunity to mitigate problems can exist with efforts to create natural protection for the mailroom in a school. Situating mailboxes for staff in a location that is not accessible to students and the general public is very important. This can help reduce the chances that a person will leave a threatening correspondence or a letter containing suspicious powder. While there have been no vehicle bombing attacks of American schools since the secondary attack by the perpetrator of the deadly Bath School attack in Michigan in 1927, protection from runaway vehicles or vehicles which might be driven into a school is a prudent consideration for various points of any school building. There have been instances where a violator has driven a car into a K-12 schools in an effort to cause severe damage to the school. Of course, runaway vehicles can also be of concern for schools located on sites with uneven ground. There are a variety of simple preventive measures involving decorative barriers and other features that can stop a motor vehicle from being driven into the school facility at entryways and areas with large plate glass windows and low walls. Whether the incident is related to terrorism or someone wanting to do damage, the same type preventive measures would come into play. Of even greater importance are building and landscape design features which can make it less likely that a vehicle will enter play areas outside of the school. There have been a number of instances where vehicles have accidentally driven onto school grounds, and at least one incident where a number of children were hit. The location of playgrounds and other outdoor activity areas in relation to roadways is important. We've covered a fair amount of information today, but only a fraction of the relevant and important topics that could be discussed with more time. We've tried to cover a variety of the more important topics in terms of likelihood that these strategies will reduce or help address more common school safety incidents. We've also tried to discuss some aspects of school design that deal with far less common situations, such as someone driving a vehicle into a school facility, which can have catastrophic consequences. We've done this because these examples tend to prompt people to think more broadly about ways to improve safety through school design. We certainly hope this information has been helpful to you and that it has been worth your time. From a legal and moral standpoint, there is no aspect of school design that is more important than life safety. While you will have almost countless other factors that must be considered in any school design project, many of the concepts we have discussed can be effectively balanced with other important considerations such as cost, aesthetics, and in fact can enhance them. The concept of CPTEP was in its infancy when Stephen was beaten up, degraded, and humiliated in his elementary school bathroom. The people who designed that school did not have the benefit of knowledge of many gifted experts in the field of safe school design like Timothy Crow, Dr. Randall Atlas, Les Nichols, and Todd Schneider, to name just a few. Today, the Internet, books, podcasts like this one, and conference presentations can help you build a more beautiful, safer, and more effective school than ever before in history. As Stephen can attest, this goal is important. I can tell you from personal experience that I, Michael Stephen Dorn, have found that an elementary school can be a very frightening place indeed. I can assure you that never in my 2 decades of law enforcement service did I ever feel the fear that I felt in the student bathroom on the north hallway of Agnes Barton Elementary School in Macon, Georgia, where I was humiliated, degraded, and beaten into submission. Everything I do as an expert in the field is shaped by research, assessment, remaining well-read, and learning from other experts in the field. But it is also shaped by the things I learned the hard way, in ways no child should ever have to experience. It has been my pleasure and indeed an honor to be allowed to visit with you today on this important topic. I wish you the very best in all of your efforts to create effective, beautiful, practical, and safe schools for our children and youth. Thank you for all you do for our schools, and have an awesome day.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today, Designing Safer and More Effective K-12 Schools. We hope that you take this opportunity to learn more from your content presented and add to your professional knowledge regarding school safety. ASEF would like to extend a very special thank you to our presenter, Michael Dorn, and to you for listening to our podcast today. We hope you will join us again soon. Please remember to visit our website at acefacilities.org to access other learning events and follow us on your preferred social media outlet. Please take a moment to complete the podcast evaluation at acefacilities.org. We value your opinion and look forward to hearing your feedback.